There is a reason you keep stumbling over the same patterns, the same frustrations, the same invisible walls in your life. And it's not because you're lazy, unlucky, or inherently flawed. It's because you're caught in something you cannot see, something ancient, embedded in the human psyche, something Carl Jung called one of the deadliest traps of the inner world: pride. Pride is not just arrogance on the surface. It's not just the person who boasts loudly, who demands attention, who shows off their success. In fact, those are often the easiest expressions of pride to spot, and the ones we're quick to judge in others. But the pride that truly ruins lives, the pride that keeps you stuck, is subtle, quiet, hidden deep inside your own shadow. And that's why you keep failing. You see, pride is the voice inside that whispers, "I don't need help." It's the part of you that resists vulnerability, that refuses to admit uncertainty, that clings to the illusion of control. Pride is not always about feeling superior. Sometimes it's about refusing to acknowledge weakness, refusing to admit mistakes, refusing to let others see where you are small, afraid, or unsure. And the more you deny these parts of yourself, the more they control you from the shadows. Jung believed that the human psyche is divided into the conscious and the unconscious, into the persona we show the world and the shadow we hide, even from ourselves. Pride builds its power in this division. It convinces you to maintain the mask, to project the image you want others to see, even when your inner world is crumbling. And the more you invest in the mask, the harder it becomes to face the truth underneath. This is why pride becomes the root of failure. Not because failure itself is shameful. Failure is natural, necessary, even beautiful when embraced consciously. But pride refuses to let you face failure honestly. It pushes you to hide your struggles, to deny your limitations, to pretend you are further along than you are. And so, you keep falling into the same traps, not because you are incapable, but because you refuse to admit where you need to learn, grow, and change. Think about the moments in your life when you felt stuck. How often did you tell yourself, "I can handle this on my own"? How often did you resist asking for help, resist seeking advice, resist opening up about your confusion or pain? Pride isolates you. It cuts you off from the very resources, human connection, feedback, new perspectives that could guide you forward. And in that isolation, your mind loops in circles, repeating the same mistakes, convinced that you're protecting yourself when you're only deepening the wound. Jung taught that real growth begins with humility, the willingness to see yourself clearly, without illusion, without defense. But humility is terrifying to the ego. To be humble is to acknowledge that you don't know everything, that you are capable of error, that you are both powerful and deeply vulnerable at once. And pride hates this. Pride clings to certainty, even when it's false. Pride clings to control, even when it's costing you your peace. Pride would rather let you fail repeatedly than let you confront the truth of your own incompleteness. But here's the paradox. The more you resist humility, the weaker you become. Pride feels like strength on the surface, but it rots you from within. It keeps you rigid, brittle, unable to bend, adapt, or transform. And life, by its nature, will break anything that refuses to bend. When you approach life armored in pride, you set yourself up for collapse because you cannot meet change, challenge, or failure with the resilience they require. Pride also feeds the illusion of separation. It convinces you that you are alone in your struggles, that no one else could understand, that to reveal your pain would be to lose dignity, respect, or love. But in truth, every human being carries wounds, doubts, and fears. To admit your own is not weakness. It's what makes you part of the human family. Jung believed that healing happens in the encounter, with yourself, with others, with the archetypes that live inside all of us. Pride isolates you from these encounters, trapping you in a hall of mirrors where only your own distorted reflection stares back. If you want to break the cycle of failure, you must begin with one of the hardest, most radical acts of all, the act of surrender. Not surrender to defeat, but surrender to truth. To look honestly at where you are clinging to control, to ask yourself where you are pretending to have it all together when inside you are crumbling, to notice where you are refusing to listen, refusing to learn, refusing to let others in. This is not an easy path, but it is the only path that leads to real transformation. Pride will tell you that to surrender is to lose, but in reality, surrender is where you gain everything: clarity, growth, connection, freedom. When you let go of the need to appear strong, you become stronger. When you release the need to always be right, you become wiser. When you admit that you need help, you open the door to the support and insight that can change your life. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Pride keeps your unconscious hidden. It keeps you blind to the patterns shaping your choices. And as long as you refuse to see, you will continue to live in the illusion that life is happening to you rather than through you. It takes immense courage to face the hidden parts of yourself, to dismantle the armor of pride and stand naked before your own soul. But this is where healing begins. This is where failure turns into learning, where stagnation turns into growth, where loneliness turns into connection. Pride is a prison, but you hold the key. And the first step to freedom is the simple, profound act of saying, "I don't have all the answers. I am willing to learn. I am ready to grow." What makes pride so dangerous is not just that it blinds you to your own weaknesses, but that it blinds you to your own potential for transformation. Pride locks you into a fixed identity, an idea of who you are, what you can do, and how the world should see you. And once that identity is set, you begin to defend it at all costs, even when it no longer serves you. Carl Jung believed that every person carries within them a deeper self, a self that is always seeking growth, integration, and wholeness. But pride stands between you and that deeper self. Pride whispers that change is dangerous, that to admit you were wrong is to lose value, that to evolve is to betray the person you were before. And so, instead of growing, you cling. You cling to old beliefs, old roles, old patterns, long after they have become prisons. You see this in relationships: the unwillingness to apologize, the refusal to admit fault, the insistence on being right, even at the cost of connection. You see this in work: the fear of trying something new, the resistance to feedback, the need to maintain the image of competence, even when it prevents you from learning. You see this in your inner life: the avoidance of uncomfortable truths, the dismissal of emotional signals, the insistence that you are fine, even when your soul is screaming for attention. Pride's hidden trap is that it tricks you into thinking that to protect yourself, you must pretend you are whole. But the real protection comes from embracing your incompleteness. Jung taught that the path to wholeness is not through perfection, but through integration. Through welcoming the shadow, the parts of yourself you fear or reject, and allowing them to become part of your conscious life. Pride resists this integration, keeping you divided, fragmented, and stuck. Think about how much energy you spend maintaining the image of who you think you should be. Think about the times you bit your tongue rather than admit you were wrong, the times you shut down rather than show vulnerability, the times you pushed someone away rather than let them see your pain. All of this is pride in action. It feels protective, but it is actually isolating. It creates distance between you and the people you love, between you and your own potential. Jung believed that suffering often arises not from the events of life themselves, but from the resistance we bring to those events. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is what we create when we refuse to face that pain honestly. Pride increases suffering by adding layers of denial, shame, and self-protection over wounds that simply need to be acknowledged. It keeps you spinning in cycles of self-sabotage, wondering why nothing changes, why you keep ending up in the same places, the same patterns, the same dead ends. The breakthrough comes the moment you allow yourself to tell the truth, first to yourself, then to others. The truth might be as simple as, I am struggling. I am afraid. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel lost. I need help. These are not admissions of failure. These are acts of courage. They are the steps that open the door to healing, connection, and authentic change. But pride will resist. It will tell you that you are strong enough to handle everything alone, that no one will understand, that vulnerability is weakness. Pride's voice is seductive because it plays to your deepest fears. The fear of rejection, the fear of humiliation, the fear of being seen as less than you want to be. But the truth is, every person you admire, every person who has grown, healed, or transformed has walked through this fire. No one becomes whole by avoiding the difficult parts of themselves. Another dangerous aspect of pride is how it distorts your perception of others. It convinces you that you are separate, superior, or in some way above the struggles you see around you. Or it flips the other way. It makes you defensive, convinced that others are judging you, attacking you, seeking to bring you down. Either way, pride isolates. It creates a wall between you and the world, a wall that only humility can break down. Humility does not mean self-hatred. It does not mean shrinking or diminishing yourself. True humility, in Jung's view, is the willingness to see yourself clearly, to accept both your light and your shadow, your gifts and your limitations, your victories and your failures. It is the ability to stand in the truth of who you are without defense or distortion. And from this place of truth, you become not weaker, but stronger, because you are no longer divided against yourself. When you let go of pride, you open the space for real learning. You become teachable. You become open to life's feedback, to the wisdom that comes from experience, from relationship, from reflection. You stop clinging to rigid ideas of how things should be, and you start engaging with how things actually are. This is where change happens. This is where the cycle of failure is interrupted, not because you suddenly become perfect, but because you become responsive. You allow yourself to evolve. Jung understood that the journey toward wholeness is not a path of constant upward progress. It is a spiral, a dance, a movement through cycles of death and rebirth, of loss and renewal. Pride resists this flow, insisting on stability, predictability, control. But life is not interested in your need for control. Life is interested in your capacity for growth. And growth, by its nature, requires surrender. If you have been stuck, if you have been repeating the same painful patterns, ask yourself, where is pride holding me back? Where am I refusing to listen? Where am I pretending to be something I am not? Where am I shutting out the help, insight, or truth that could set me free? These are not easy questions, but they are the doorway to everything you seek. There comes a moment, if you are paying attention, when you realize that the biggest obstacle in your life has never been the world around you. It has been yourself. Not because you are inherently flawed or broken, but because you have clung to an identity, an image, a role, so tightly that you have left no room for growth. This is the hidden trap of pride, and it is why you keep failing. Carl Jung understood that failure, at its core, is often a signal from the unconscious, a message that something in your approach, your mindset, or your self-concept needs to shift. But pride resists this message. Pride tells you that the problem is always out there: the unfair world, the difficult people, the impossible circumstances. Pride blinds you to the one place where true change can happen: within. You see, pride convinces you that to admit your part in your struggles is to accept blame or shame. But in truth, to admit your part is to claim your power. It is only when you acknowledge your own patterns, your own blind spots, your own resistance, that you open the door to real agency. Without this, you remain trapped in the role of the victim, endlessly circling the same frustrations, convinced that you are powerless to break free. Jung believed that the path to wholeness begins with radical honesty, not just about the world, but about yourself. Where are you pretending? Where are you clinging to old stories about who you are and what you deserve? Where are you refusing to look at the places where you sabotage your own progress? Pride will tell you that looking inward is dangerous, that it will shatter your self-esteem, that it will expose you to pain you cannot handle. But the opposite is true. Looking inward is the path to liberation. It is where you meet your true self, not the mask you show the world. Humility, Jung taught, is the foundation of real strength. It is not weakness or submission. It is the ability to stand in the truth of your own humanity, both your brilliance and your blindness, your courage and your fear, your competence and your limitations. It is the capacity to say, I am enough, even as I am still learning. I am worthy, even as I am still growing. I am whole, even as I carry wounds. Without humility, you cannot integrate these parts. You remain fragmented, divided, stuck. Pride isolates you not only from others, but from life itself. It creates a false sense of control, a belief that if you can just hold everything together, you will be safe. But life is not a fixed structure. It is a living process. It moves, it shifts, it breaks, it renews. To live fully is to participate in this flow, to allow yourself to be reshaped by experience, to let go of who you were in order to become who you are meant to be. The signs that pride is holding you back are subtle, but unmistakable. You resist feedback. You avoid discomfort. You defend yourself even when you know you are wrong. You dismiss opportunities that challenge you. You pull away from relationships when vulnerability is required. You cling to old habits, old beliefs, old roles, even as they drain your energy. And underneath it all, you feel the quiet ache of stagnation, the sense that something inside you is withering, waiting, longing to break free. To escape this trap, you must be willing to let the walls come down. You must be willing to look at the parts of yourself you have hidden, not with judgment, but with compassion. Jung believed that the shadow, the rejected, denied parts of the self, holds not only our pain, but our power. What you fear to face within yourself is often the very thing that holds the key to your liberation. Pride keeps the shadow locked away. Humility invites it in, integrates it, makes you whole. This is not easy work. It is not a one-time decision, but a lifelong practice. Every day offers you opportunities to soften your defenses, to listen more deeply, to let go of the need to control how you are seen. Every challenge offers you a mirror, reflecting back the places where you are still holding on, still resisting, still afraid. And every time you choose humility over pride, you take a step toward freedom. You begin to see failure not as a judgment, but as information. You begin to see mistakes not as shameful, but as necessary steps on the path of learning. You begin to see vulnerability not as danger, but as the gateway to real connection. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to see yourself not as a fixed identity, but as a living, evolving being, capable of change, capable of growth, capable of becoming more than you ever imagined. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But you cannot become who you are if you are busy defending who you were. You cannot step into your fullness if you are clinging to your limitations. Pride will tell you that you are already complete, already finished, already perfect. But your soul knows the truth. You are a work in progress, a masterpiece unfolding, a life in motion. So if you find yourself stuck, repeating the same painful patterns, ask yourself, where is pride holding me back? Where am I refusing to listen, to learn, to let go? Where am I pretending to be something I am not, or resisting the person I am meant to become? And then, with as much gentleness and courage as you can muster, take a step, even a small one, toward humility, toward openness, toward change. Thank you for being here, for walking this journey of reflection and transformation. If this message spoke to you, consider subscribing for more insights on Jungian wisdom, personal growth, and the deep patterns that shape our lives. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Your story might be the sign someone else needs today. And if you found value here, a like or a share can help spread this message to others on the path. Remember, you are not alone. The journey toward wholeness is shared by all of us. And every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to the person you were always meant to be.